You can always save up again. That was the last straw. That money wasn't his to spend. It was for our daughter's future. Yet my husband, Sullivan, had drained it without a second thought. He needed a reality check. So I smiled and said, "Oh, I've already received the transfer, $6,000 from your mistress." The color drained from his face. His parents, sitting across from us, froze. I felt a little bad for them, but this was necessary. If Sullivan thought he could just waste our daughter's future on his personal indulgences, he was mistaken. My name is Amanda. I'm 40, and I live with my soon-to-be ex-husband Sullivan and our daughter, Lana, who's about to start high school. Sullivan and I met in college. We weren't close at first, but circumstances kept throwing us together. Same classes, same club, same workplace after graduation. Over time, we grew close. He came from a strict, traditional family. I had lost my parents young. We both had our own gaps to fill. His love was cars. Mine was romantic fantasy novels. Somehow, that was enough to bring us together. But his parents weren't thrilled. His father, especially, was cold to me. "I sympathize with your situation, but this is different," he had said when we first met. Still, over time, they relented. We got engaged, got married, and for a while, things were good. Sullivan focused on his career. I left my job and became a full-time housewife. Then reality hit. Not long after our wedding, Sullivan got transferred to a regional office. The promotion was promising, and we decided to move together. I assumed our life would continue as it had. I was wrong. "Can I buy a new car?" That was where it started. Sullivan had always driven a second-hand car, bought without his parents' help. He was proud of it, but once we moved, he was determined to upgrade. I didn't argue. His old car had seen better days, and it was his passion. So he bought the new car without asking for my input. That was my first mistake. It was flashy, bold, completely different from his old car. Looking back, maybe it was symbolic. Moving away from his parents had freed him from whatever restraint they had over him, and with that freedom, he started to change. At first, it was subtle. He made more decisions on his own, ignored my suggestions. Then it escalated. "Didn't we agree the next big purchase would be a microwave? The dealer said now was the best time to buy another car." Just like that, he bought another one. Still, he showed some restraint until Lana was born. After that, Sullivan changed completely. He used to help with housework. Now, he did nothing. He had promised to help with Lana. He ignored her. "I'm busy. You handle the house. You don't even make money. If you want an opinion, earn more than me." I tried to manage. I looked for remote work to contribute financially. Sullivan seemed pleased when I stayed quiet and followed his lead. His parents had raised him with rigid gender roles, something he had once resented. But as he grew older, he started using that same logic to justify himself. "That's how it was in my house." Ironically, in trying to escape their influence, he became just like them. But even his father hadn't been this selfish. Sullivan barely acknowledged Lana. He didn't know what she liked, what she was interested in. He didn't care. He only cared about one thing: cars. Every time a new model came out, he found an excuse to buy it. When I protested after the third car purchase, he snapped. "Shut up! It's my money! I can do whatever I want." It wasn't just his money. And soon, he proved exactly how little he cared about that fact. I was doing my best to keep our finances afloat, but Sullivan was burning through money faster than I could save. Still, I held on, thinking at least he hadn't touched Lana's savings. Until one day, I checked the account. It was drained. Sullivan, explain yourself. He barely looked up from his phone. Yeah, I took some out. Some? The balance had plummeted. That wasn't. Some. What did you use it for? Another car? He grinned. Nope. And then he said something that shattered whatever was left of my respect for him. It's a woman. I just stared. What? I'm seeing someone else. What's wrong with looking for something in another woman when I can't find it in you? He was smiling. Not guilty. Not ashamed. Proud. I gripped the edge of the table. Do you understand what you're saying? Yeah. I'm saying I'm having an affair. As if it was nothing. And then he laughed. But it's not even an affair anymore. She's my main woman now. I felt sick. But he wasn't done. And just so you know, telling my parents won't do anything. They'll laugh it off. Back in their day, having a mistress was a sign of success. That was when I made my decision. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to waste one more second of my life on this pathetic excuse for a man. Be prepared, Sullivan, I said calmly. When the time comes, I'll divorce you. He smirked, still thinking he was in control. I let him believe that. For now. Sullivan actually believed his own nonsense. That much was clear. He had no shame, no remorse, just arrogance. But if he thought I'd sit back and take it, he was mistaken. I was done playing the loyal wife. That night, I made my decision. I was going to take him down my way. The first step was talking to Lana. I hesitated. She was in the middle of preparing for her high school entrance exams, and the last thing I wanted was to add more stress. But at this point, pretending everything was fine wasn't going to help anyone. Lana, what do you think about your father? She barely looked up from her notes. If you're asking if I hate him, yeah, I do. I blinked. You knew? She sighed, setting her pencil down. It wasn't hard to figure out. I kept smelling perfume that wasn't yours. Took me a while to put it together, but yeah, I know. I felt a pang of guilt. I had tried to shield her from it, but she had known all along. I'm sorry, I murmured. She shrugged. Not your fault. So what's the plan? I stared at her. You're okay with me divorcing him? Lana gave a dry laugh. Mom, please. Don't stay with him for my sake. Honestly, I might do better on my exams without him around. It'd be a relief. That was all I needed to hear. Now, it was about control. I knew Sullivan. He was planning to divorce me his way, blame me, make me the villain, and walk away with everything. I needed to strike first. I started gathering evidence. While I was preparing, Lana passed her entrance exams. Sullivan, for once, looked happy. Let's tell my parents and celebrate. I played along. A week later, we drove to his parents' house for a small dinner. I was tense, but Lana, despite her usual distaste for Sullivan, didn't seem too bothered. His parents weren't strict with her, and she seemed to enjoy their company. The house was set up for a celebration. His mother had even ordered pizza for Lana, something that showed she cared in her own way. Just as I was about to thank her, Sullivan spoke up. Before we eat, I have something to discuss. His father nodded. Keep it brief. Sullivan smirked. Now that Lana has been accepted, I want to talk about what I've been holding back. Amanda, I want a divorce. Silence. You've been taking money from Lana's savings, he continued. I can't take it anymore. I almost laughed. He was really doing this. He pulled out the bank book like it was some kind of smoking gun. Look, the money is gone. His parents frowned as they flipped through it. Sullivan leaned close, whispering smugly in my ear. I used the money for a new car, he admitted, grinning. but you won't be able to prove it. My parents won't believe you. Just accept it, Amanda. That was his plan? Blame me for his theft? Too bad for him. I had my own evidence. I let him finish his little show. His father was just about to scold me when I spoke up, loud enough for everyone to hear. Oh, I've already received the transfer. $6,000. From your mistress? The room froze. Sullivan's father, who had been about to say something, stopped mid-breath. His mother's eyes widened. Even Sullivan looked like I had just slapped him across the face. What? He choked out. I shrugged. Go ahead and check the record if you don't believe me. His father, still processing what I had just said, turned to me. Explain. I smiled. By mistress, I mean Sullivan's affair partner. She's not here tonight, but I've already spoken with her. Sullivan's composure shattered. What do you mean you've already spoken with her? He demanded. I turned to him and said it plainly. Exactly what it sounds like. My discussion with Haley is over. Haley, 29 years old, office worker, a clerk at a company that partnered with Sullivan's. I listed her details one by one. Sullivan's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Haley told me everything. I continued. She said she was attracted to you because you seemed well off. Sound familiar? Lana snickered. I had to fight back a laugh myself. Sullivan clenched his fists, trembling. That's ridiculous. You're wrong. Haley isn't like that. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, then tell me, what is she like? He puffed out his chest. She fell in love with my personality and work ethic. She said she admired how serious I am. That did it. I burst out laughing. Lana covered her mouth, shaking with laughter. What's so funny? Sullivan snapped. I wiped a tear from my eye. A serious man doesn't cheat. His father's expression darkened, but I wasn't done yet. You really don't get it, do you? I said. Haley isn't what you think she is. He scoffed. Oh yeah? Prove it. I leaned forward. When I told her I was taking her to court, she abandoned you. His face drained of color. She begged me for forgiveness. I continued. Said she'd do anything to avoid court. So, I settled with her. She agreed to pay damages, $60,000. Oh, and she also agreed to fully cooperate in making sure this divorce goes in my favor. Sullivan let out a strangled noise. I pulled out my notepad and flipped through my notes. By the way, father-in-law, didn't you notice a withdrawal of about $22,000 last November? His father, still holding the bank book, frowned and flipped to the page. His expression darkened. Indeed. I smirked. That was for a designer handbag. The latest model, actually. Sullivan's father glared at him. What else? I mused. Ah, yes. Expensive dinners, luxury hotel stays, oh, and a lot of gifts. It's funny how the withdrawals match up almost perfectly with these purchases. Sullivan panicked. That doesn't prove anything. It could have been you. You don't have solid proof. Lana rolled her eyes. Dad, that's literally what you tried to do to Mom earlier. The irony was lost on Sullivan. But I wasn't finished. I reached into my bag. If that's not enough proof, here's more. I pulled out a stack of photographs. Sullivan lunged forward and snatched them from my hands, ripping them to pieces. I sighed. That's not a great way to destroy evidence, you know. His breathing was heavy, his body tense. Then he snapped. What's wrong with having an affair? Women should just support their husbands without saying anything. Lana made a disgusted noise. Sullivan turned to his father. Dad, you understand, right? Affairs are a sign of a man's success. Slap. Sullivan's head snapped to the side. His father glared at him. Enough of this nonsense. Sullivan's mother sighed. Amanda, you are kind. He doesn't deserve you. His father turned to me. Divorce him. We'll make sure he pays alimony and child support. Sullivan was ruined. I didn't need to fight anymore. Sullivan's confidence was cracking, but he wasn't ready to let go just yet. So what? He snapped. Just because the numbers match doesn't mean anything. That doesn't prove Mom didn't use the money. Lana, calm as ever, crossed her arms. Oh, but you thought it was enough evidence when you were blaming Mom earlier. He stiffened. The logic was simple. If records alone were enough proof to accuse me, then they were enough to prove him guilty. And if he wanted to take it to court, I was more than ready. I reached into my bag. I have more. Sullivan's eyes followed my hand, and when I pulled out the photos, his entire body tensed. These weren't just any pictures. They were evidence, clear, undeniable proof of his affair. Photos from the private investigator. Him and Haley on dates. Checking into hotels. Kissing. I stepped forward to hand them to his father. What does that matter? Sullivan suddenly lunged, snatching the photos from my hands and ripping them to shreds. I sighed. Not a very smart move. You realize I have copies, right? His breathing grew heavier, his eyes darting around like a cornered animal. Then he snapped. So what if I had an affair? A wife should just support her husband and keep her mouth shut. Lana made a noise of pure disgust. God, you're pathetic. But Sullivan wasn't listening. His face twisted, his voice rising. You didn't even notice the affair until I told you. I was the one keeping this family afloat. Right, Dad? You understand, don't you? His father's face was unreadable. Sullivan pushed forward. You always kept Mom in line. You said a man's success is measured by the women he has. Affairs are a sign of power. A heavy silence settled over the room. Then, slap. The sound cracked through the air. Sullivan's head snapped to the side. His own father had hit him. Rubbing his cheek, Sullivan turned back, shocked. Dad! His father's face was cold. Is that what you think of me? Sullivan swallowed hard. Biba, Dad, enough of this nonsense. His father's voice boomed, silencing the room. Sullivan's mother, who had stayed quiet, finally sighed. Amanda, you are too kind. Someone who took advantage of that doesn't deserve forgiveness. His father turned to me. Leave him. We'll make sure you get the alimony and the assets you deserve. Even though they were his parents, they weren't going to defend him. Not after this. Sullivan froze. Lana smirked. Looks like you're the one getting dumped, Dad. Still, he wasn't ready to accept reality. This is ridiculous. I won't allow it. His father looked tired. No, Sullivan. You won't be allowed. There was no coming back from this. The evidence was overwhelming. Haley had turned against him to protect herself. His parents had disowned him, and he had no way out. He let out a hollow laugh. Fine. But Amanda, you won't survive without me. You'll have to come crawling back. I tilted my head. Oh, I already told you. Haley sent me the settlement money. I'm good. Sullivan's eyes twitched. That's a lie. Even if you have money now, it'll run out. You'll still need me to support you and Lana. I smiled. That's where you're wrong. I reached into my bag one last time and pulled out my own bank book. Sullivan stared. His jaw dropped when I flipped it open, showing the balance. $100,000. What? How? You don't even work. I shrugged. There are plenty of jobs you can do from home. Lana leaned forward with a grin. Yeah, Mom's been working all this time. Not that you'd know, since you never cared. Sullivan's body stiffened. I explained. For years, I had been working quietly, taking writing assignments online. At first, it was tough, barely any pay, constant rejection. But I kept at it. Eventually, my work gained recognition, and clients started coming to me. Lana beamed. She even writes game scripts now. For big projects. I had even limited how much of my earnings I deposited into our joint account. It had been a gut instinct. Something about Sullivan's behavior had made me wary. And now, that decision had saved me. So no, I said, closing the bank book. We don't need you. Sullivan's face drained of color. No, that's impossible. This can't be happening. I have nowhere to go. His breathing turned ragged. Then, like a man grasping at his last hope, his eyes lit up. Haley! That's right. She needs me. She won't abandon me. He turned to bolt from the room. Dad, you should stop him, Lana said. His father nodded. I'll handle it. As Sullivan ran out, I didn't chase after him. He was finished. Things took an unexpected turn. Haley got arrested. Apparently, she wasn't just a gold digger. She was a scammer. She had done this to multiple men, taking money from them before jumping to her next target. One of them had reported her, and she was caught. So when Sullivan ran to her for help, she wasn't there anymore. His father found him wandering aimlessly in a daze and brought him back, completely broken. But that didn't mean he was off the hook. When he tried calling me and Lana, begging for another chance, his father snapped. You will sign the divorce papers, pay alimony, and support your daughter. If you try anything else, you will regret it. Cornered, Sullivan caved. Sullivan's parents cut him off. Now he lives with them, forced to wake up at dawn and follow their strict rules like he's a child again. His father vowed to reshape his character, but I doubt he'll change. Meanwhile, his company found out everything. I had been an employee there once, and when his coworkers started noticing his strange behavior, they reached out to me. I didn't hide the truth. Word spread. Sullivan is now the office joke. His colleagues avoid him, and every workday is like walking on broken glass. They say stress has eaten away at him, and he's lost weight. I don't care. Lana started high school recently. I had worried about how the divorce might affect her, but she just laughed. No way. I'm relieved. As for me, that game scenario I wrote, it got huge praise. Now, I'm flooded with requests, more than I can even accept. For the first time in years, I feel free. One day, I might even write all of this down. Maybe Lana and I will read it together someday and laugh. Because honestly, Sullivan never stood a chance.